Hello and welcome back to another episode of Activist. I'm Gareth.
And I'm Jackie, and today we are super excited to bring you our interview with Matthew Glover. Matthew is the co-founder of some incredible global initiatives such as Veganuary, $1 Million Vegan, and most recently his latest venture, Veg Capital.
In this episode, Matthew gives us an insight in how we can advocate for the animals through business and vote with our wallet. We really hope you learn from this and enjoy it as much as we did. So Matthew, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure. I've got a background in running businesses, being an entrepreneur. So I started my first company when I was 21, and been sort of in that sort of double glazing event space. And then more recently, the world changed for me when I became a vegan. This was about 8 or 9 years ago. So I've been doing a degree of activism through Veganuary. I know we're going to talk about that, $1 Million Vegan. So yeah, that's it. I've a partner in crime, Jane. She's a bit of an introvert, so she's not on the call with me. But we're very much like you two, work on it together. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's a pretty awesome nutshell. I mean, Veganuary alone has inspired almost 1 million people in 192 countries to try a vegan diet, which is incredible. And, you know, as a creator of Veganuary along with Jane, when the concept first came to you, was it just a bit of a whimsical idea? Or did you have the feeling even back then that you might be onto something big?
Listen, I always think big in everything that I do. So I was pretty confident that it would work. I mean, at times I'm sort of disappointed it hasn't done better, but that's just the way I am, you know. But I think in many respects we were quite lucky that the name really resonated with people from the outset. So there was sort of precedence, particularly in the UK, with Stoptober and Movember. So this idea of people committing to do something for a month, normally something quite positive, and the name being sort of a hash of two words sort of merged together. So when we, myself and Jane, were talking through the idea of doing a pledge, vegan pledge, which we felt was the best thing to get people at least giving it a go, and then we talked about what was going to be the best month, and we felt that January was the right month for this, you know, with New Year's resolutions, and people have just eaten too much food at Christmas, and people are just generally more interested in the health and all that aspect as well. So we had the word vegan in January, and it was like, Veganuary, does that work? You know, and it worked really well. I mean, the first year, even though it was just myself and Jane working on the campaign, we got some great media attention. We were in The Guardian. We had the Daily Mail writing that Jamie Oliver was taking part in Veganuary, which was total nonsense. I don't know where they got the story from, but that was, you know, just the two of us working in our kitchen, and suddenly you're in these national newspapers was great. So, but we were very lucky. It sort of then started to generate its own momentum, which was wonderful.
So at the time, I understand you were still selling double glazing, and Jane was working as a teacher. What did the local community there in York think of you guys all of a sudden hitting the news with this? Yeah,
actually, I think we kept it pretty low for the first sort of few years. But one story I can tell you is about 2 years ago, we moved into a small hamlet on the outskirts of York. So there's like 15 houses. And I said to Jane when we move here, let's not tell everybody we're vegan. It's a farming community around here. Let's get to know everybody first before we let this news out, let the cabbage out the bag. And then within a couple of weeks, there was a journalist from the York Press got in touch and wanted to do a little interview. So Jane said, "Oh, you know, we've got this journalist," and I was like, "Don't do it. You know, we're just getting to know the neighbours. You know, let's, you know." And she says, "Well, it'll only be a small one." So she sent back some questions, and then the journalist wanted some photographs And I was like, don't send any photographs. Anyway, she did do. Anyway, next day, we were on the front page of the York Press. Big picture of me and Jane, York couple run Veganuary campaign, something like that. So then it was, the neighbour found out, but actually everybody's fine with it. We get on great. So there's talk of a barbecue later on in the summer once the lockdown finishes. So that'll be interesting. See how that goes.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I can imagine, though, page 2, big sale on pitchforks and torches,
Yeah, welcome to the neighbourhood.
There was it went onto the York Press online as well, and some of the comments were quite amusing from people. We live in a village called Copmanthorpe, and there was one person put, to think I nearly moved to Copmanthorpe as well. Glad I didn't.
You influence the whole village. Oh, that's brilliant. But one of the reasons that Veganuary appeals to so many is that from the outset, you presented veganism in such a positive way. Is this a natural extension of you and Jane and how you live and view being vegan? Would you say that this whole sort of joyful aspect is a key to marketing and growing Veganuary?
Oh no, we're quite miserable, really, most of the time.
I could tell.
I think we looked at it, and we live in a community where veganism is not the norm. So we felt that we needed the campaign to be non-judgmental and friendly, and not typical sort of hardcore animal rightsy. So we just intuitively came that way, where we just, I guess it is an extension of our personalities, where we didn't want to fall out with anyone. We just wanted to say, look, give it a go for a month. If you enjoy it, that's great. We secretly want you to stick with it at the end of January, but we're not going to be judgmental if you accidentally get drunk and have a kebab in the middle of January. It's not the end of the world. We help you get back onto the program and see how it goes. And then through doing that, you tend to get more people that are open to giving it a go. That's our experience anyway. And so the campaign's always been like that. We do still share traditional animal rights messages, but it's dotted around with sort of friendly sort of messages as well, positive messages. And that seems to work. That's worked for the campaign. If we were too hardcore, we wouldn't be able to work with all of the big chain restaurants and supermarkets, and all of those wouldn't entertain us if we were too hardcore, I would say.
Yeah, very true. Even over here, Veganuary is a thing over here, and the stores get involved in the supermarkets, and we have big displays, which is fantastic. Like you say, if it was hardcore, I don't think that you could do that too well, especially in rural old New Zealand.
Well, that's great to hear it's happening in New Zealand as well, because we don't have any staff there, or so it's always been a campaign that's done extremely well in the UK. In fact, there's we've worked with YouGov as part of the government, and they did a survey recently to identify what proportion of the UK population were aware of certain animal rights groups. And Veganuary, 40% of the UK population was aware of the campaign. But again, I'm like, well, what about the other 60%? So we need to work on that. But so we're pleased. But in other countries such as Australia, New Zealand, US, the rest of the world pretty much, and Veganuary is not as well known. But we still plan to gradually keep growing the campaign internationally.
I definitely think it's getting there. There's a lot of people I meet who don't really know what a vegan is, but they've heard of Veganuary, so that's a good sign.
Right.
Once you got the campaign up and running, you ended up writing a book of how to go vegan, and it's a brilliant little resource, helping to keep people on track there. Have you found more people are sticking to the Veganuary now that they've got that extra little support on hand?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, firstly, I want to say that the book was written by Kate Fowler, who is an amazing activist in the UK, so hugely experienced. And we actually, that particular book, we had a call from the publishers in August saying, we'd like to do a book with you, and we'd been a different publisher that got in touch to do a similar sort of book, and they were saying they would do it the year after. So when I was speaking to Hodders, I said, well, look, if you guys can turn this book around by this January, then we've got a deal. And they said, well, if you can write the book in 5 weeks, we can turn it around. So Kate, she just put herself in a room and she just put pen to paper and she wrote an amazing book. And we managed to get it ready for the next Veganuary campaign. And yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the figures are, but there's certainly sold thousands of copies so far. And the feedback that we've got is that when you've read the book and you've thought it through, and it's called How to Go Vegan, but the first third of the book is why go vegan as well. So we start off with all of the reasons why, and then we give the practical tips. So it certainly is a very useful resource for anybody that's taking part in Veganuary. Definitely.
I think it's it's an awesome resource anyway. And we wrote a cookbook earlier in the year or last year, should I say, and it took us a hell of a lot longer than 5 weeks. So that's amazing. That's a huge turnaround, and it's such a great resource to have as well. Just the name, How to Go Vegan. I mean, I've been getting people asking me lately, can you write How to Go Vegan? It's like, oh my God, where do you start? So it's so great to say, well, go here. There's a whole book on it, because it's a lot more than just like, well, you do this, So it's a brilliant resource. And like you say, Veganuary has influenced supermarkets and other business which have otherwise been sort of quiet in January, which was another great bonus of, the whole not gimmick, but the whole concept, and made them realize what a demand there is for vegan food and develop new products. And apparently, Marks and Spencer's, who I miss greatly, even they've created a vegan strategy group. And with every year that goes by, like I say, here in New Zealand, there are more and more companies, more and more places that are offering vegan options because of it. And all this from a small seed of an idea. Was this also the case with your next project, which was, of course, $1 Million Vegan? Did that start on a bit of a whim as well? Or again, was that big from the outset? Yeah, just on the Marks and Spencer's point, just a quick story on that. The actual part of the reason why Marks and Spencer's have developed such an amazing range is that there's a young woman there who took part in Veganuary and stuck with it. We met with her about 3 years ago, and she was struggling because she was a food development person, so she had to try the foods that she was developing, and some of them at that point in time were still meat-based. So, she was vegan, but she was still having to put meat in her mouth, which was creating her all sorts of sort of ethical problems, as you can imagine. So we met with her, and she said, what should we do? Maybe I should join a vegan business that develops. And I was like, no, stay at Marks and Spencer's, because you can make such change if you do that. And then since then, she sort of led the way on developing Plant Kitchen, and so that's great. Sorry, I'm not answering your question at all here. But in terms of $1 Million Vegan, it was we originally thought about doing it for Veganuary, so the $1 Million sort of offer concept, but it felt like more of an edgy sort of controversial campaign. So we felt that we will create a standalone campaign for that. And, we worked with some donors in the movement that were willing to sort of back it and put the money up as well. So it took a little bit of planning, but, a fun campaign nevertheless. It's still, it's only like 18 months it's existed for, so it's still very early days for the campaign. Oh, it's brilliant. It's so exciting what you do. Like, everything is so positive. And I mean, for those who don't know, $1 Million Vegan shot to fame in 2019 when it helped a 12-year-old Genesis Butler write a letter to the Pope asking him to go vegan for Lent in exchange for donating $1 million to charity. And, at the time you said it was a deliberate sort of audacious move to jolt world leaders, should I say, out of their complacency. It's absolute genius, and it attracted so much traction and awareness all around the world. And like you say, got awesome celebrity backing. How was it you heard about Genesis, and what made you decide to get behind her and her mission?
Yeah, well, we felt that if it was an animal rights group asking the Pope to go vegan for Lent, it wouldn't carry as much weight as this amazing young girl, So we were aware of Genesis. She's a superstar. Even before $1 Million Vegan, she was doing amazing things. She did a TEDx talk when she was 6, 7, 8, something like that. And she spoke so passionately, and so. We were debating whether we could get a celebrity to make the request of the Pope, but we felt it softened it quite substantially if we could have an amazing young activist like Genesis on board. So how we got to speak to her about it was we were at the Animal Rights Conference in the US, and Genesis was there. So we got to know her, and we had friends and put us together. And there was a question asked of her, Genesis, if you were to ask any of the world leaders to go vegan, would you be happy to do that? And she was like, yeah, of course, amazing. I'd love to do that. So we felt comfortable that she would, because it was a big thing as well for that media limelight for such a young person. But we spoke to her mum and did all of the due diligence, and we knew that she was going to be totally comfortable with being part of it and fronting the campaign. And she did an amazing job. And the Pope, I don't know if you remember, but her and her mum visited the Vatican and got within 2 meters touching distance of His Holiness. But she did manage to get within the walls of the Vatican City and met with one of the priests there, and he blessed her and blessed the campaign. And then the letter that was signed by lots of celebrities and activists was actually handed over in the Vatican City. And the Pope actually wrote a letter to Genesis, to her home, thanking her and blessing her and praying for her and to continue the great work, which was amazing. I mean, unfortunately, he didn't agree to go vegan. But we always knew that was going to be an audacious ask. And the success of the campaign, we always felt, didn't rely on whether the Pope agreed to it or not. It was more a case of putting it out there for a more, let's say, conservative Christian audience to think about the issues that we were raising, in that respect, I think it worked.
Wow, it's such a beautiful story, and
We're
hoping to hopefully get hold of Genesis during this series and talk more about it. We just love that story so much. And so $1 Million Vegan has the bolder approach as compared to the lighter-hearted sort of Veganuary. And also you guys have collaborated with animal rights movements and environmental movements like Extinction Rebellion. Was it important for you to start bringing those guys in with the case of $1 Million Vegan?
Yeah, we were intrigued by Extinction Rebellion, and obviously there was the Animal Rebellion part of that. So we supported it alongside, many other groups at the time. So even though I guess we're more on the pragmatic side of the movement, working with all these big organizations. There's a place for all sorts of different types of activism, and so I was personally intrigued by that direct action, tactics. So I was there as well during Extinction Rebellion, wanting to be a part of that. So there's a great book by Norm Phelps, and he talks about a healthy movement having both, what are the terms he uses? Both the politicians and the another word, but the more like the antagonist type of activists. So, like if you look at the civil rights movement, you had Martin Luther King, you had Malcolm X, different strategies, but both working towards the same goal. And I think that's very true in this movement as well. It may very well be that the direct sort of action tactics make people aware of build awareness and make people aware of the issues. But as individuals, or certainly as organizations like big companies, they're more likely to partner with groups like Veganuary than maybe they are with, DXC or Anonymous or those type of organizations. So, but I think we're all in it together. We're all part of a team, and that's how we should see things. And that's a healthy movement for me.
Yeah, we truly believe in that too. Hence why we're doing this series, to hopefully get all of our activists starting to understand all the different little branches and all the different niches that they can go into, because we're all...
Get the wheels turning. What can we do?
we're all part of the movement. We're all different cogs in the machine. And it's brilliant when we can work together. So you also put out the $1 million offer to President Trump, or at least President at the time of recording. And so that was to hopefully get him on the vegan diet too. And that was spearheaded by 9-year-old vegan Evan, another brilliant youngster on board. It's so great to have these projects, and being able to pass over the reins and have these different spearheads. But out of interest, is there someone who's still on your list to get at the moment? Is there someone you'd like to challenge in the future?
Yes. We're working on I can't say too much, obviously, but we're working on a potential candidate at the moment. We'll have a different strategy for this one. At the moment, with coronavirus and the disruption that's caused, we've decided that it's not the right timing to do another $1 million offer. So as a campaign, we've pivoted slightly towards doing these food giveaways. So because we've got activists in different countries, they're working with various different restaurants and kitchens to make delicious food and to give it to people that are in need. They say that, what is it? The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So we're trying to use that as a form of activism at the moment. But I don't think it'd be too long to have another $1 million offer campaign. We'll see. But like I said, I can't really say more than that.
I shall look forward to it gleefully. And I know somebody else that says all the time about the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So, totally get there. And that's one of the things that we love so much about both Veganuary and $1 Million Vegan is that you give so much away, not only just to participants in the form of free information and resources and support and all of those goodies, but you also give a massive amount to charities. And, not only are you working to support the vegan movement, but you're also now working towards systematic change with yet another brilliant venture. I'm wondering if you sleep at all, but can you tell us about your new baby, Veg Capital? I love how you describe this in particular as a double whammy of activism.
Yeah, it's an extension of the activism that we've been doing. I guess, in simple terms, we've been working on the demand side for a while. We're trying to increase the demand for vegan products by convincing people to either reduce their consumption of animal products or, hopefully give them up completely through the campaigns that we've been doing. Some of the experience that certainly we had with Veganuary is that there is... people are very open to the idea of of going vegan, but they find it very difficult. They find that the availability of vegan products isn't there, the price of vegan products isn't there, or the taste is not quite there yet. So, like through Veganuary, we always do a survey in February every year of all the people that took part, and we want to see how they got on. We want to find out what proportion of them are going to stick with it. If they're not going to stick with it, have they made changes to their diet that are still positive? And through all of that, we've identified that there's 5 main barriers, if you like, to sticking with it. The first one is eating out. People really struggle with that, to find vegan options, to have enough of a range of options when they're eating out. In places like London or New York, it's easier, but in other parts of the world, I don't know what it's like in New Zealand, but probably, particularly in rural areas, it's not too easy. Yeah. So you've got to be highly committed to stick with it. So there's eating out, there's friends and family, it's all of that social pressure, that particularly, youngsters with parents, and parents don't approve. So we hear a lot of those sort of stories. The cooking element, having to learn how to cook vegan food from scratch when you've been used to cooking in a certain way can be a challenge for people. Shopping, that's the 4th part of it. So, learning, finding the products in supermarkets, knowing what products are vegan and which ones aren't, having to learn how to read labels, and it comes naturally to us now, scanning through the ingredients and looking for the allergens and stuff, or we probably just know what's vegan anyway, so it's easy. But for new people, it's more difficult. And the 5th barrier is cheese. It's got its own sort of people find giving up cheese way more difficult than giving up meat from the research that we've done. So we've learned all of this and felt that, and particularly with myself having a background on the commercial side, running businesses, that maybe it might make sense to start working on the supply side a little bit more, and helping to provide support and funding to stimulate, the business side of it, to support all the exciting new innovations that are coming out. And a lot of these young entrepreneurs have got amazing ideas, but they're bootstrapping it at the minute. And so if we can provide them a little bit of support to develop their products much faster, then that's where the double whammy is. We're still working on the demand side, but if we can help on the supply side, hopefully we'll get there quicker. So we're only a small part of it. There's people doing much more amazing things than we are, but we're keen to give it a go.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. I definitely know about that fifth one with cheese. I used to be a massive cheeseaholic back in the day, and I think it's probably the most advice I give people when they ask about. We're in a lot of vegan and vegetarian groups, so we get that chance to talk to a lot more people. And cheese is always the big one that comes up, and yeah. If I can manage it, I think everyone can.
We ate a lot of Asian and Indian to start with, but like you say, the more products we can get out there to make it easier for people. It's even just today, I think we take it for granted once we've been vegan for a while as well. Even just today on Facebook, I saw several people in groups going, I'm trying to go vegan, but it's so hard. And of course, after being vegan 3 years, it's not hard at all. But, I think you can't underestimate how people are feeling, and having that support there. So to make that adjustment easier, it's just so important.
Yeah, and going back to the cheese situation at the moment, that things are definitely getting better, but I don't think we've quite cracked the code as a movement yet on cheese. So that there are some amazing products, and we're starting to, we're getting pitch decks through from amazing companies, and I've been getting some samples, and I've been giving them to my parents who are not vegan, saying, Dad, Mum, could you try these and let us know? Because for me, it's like 8-9 years since I've had dairy cheese. So it's not my view that's important. It's your view on this. So, but I think from what I'm seeing on the technological side, we're getting there slowly but surely, which is great news.
That's brilliant.
Definitely come a
So
long way.
the focus of Veg Capital is helping to transform a broken food system. How can we help you in achieving that? Us, the audience, and just the general public.
Yeah, well, we're interested in talking to great founders. So, raising awareness that Veg Capital exists is certainly helping us. We've been quietly making a few investments because I was still working on the $1 Million Vegan campaign. Through the back end of last year, myself and Jane have sort of handed over the reins to somebody, to Naomi now, who's running the campaign going forward. So we needed to tie up a few loose ends before we threw ourselves fully into Veg Capital. But since we launched sort of publicly 2 weeks ago, we've had at least 50 applications. It's probably way more than that, actually. It's been amazing to see what's out there. So there's no shortage of founders out there that need financial support. The challenge for us is we have a limited fund, size, and we can't unfortunately support everybody, and that I'm finding difficult actually, because there's some great entrepreneurs with great ideas, but they just don't quite fit our criteria. And, I'm finding very difficult to say no to these founders because I love what they're doing, and they love what they're doing, and they think that we should support them. And I agree with them to some extent, but, unfortunately we can't, we don't have the capacity to offer the funding to every company, unfortunately.
I look forward to the vegans version of Dragon's Den or Shark Tank as they have it in the US, That
would be awesome. Vegan Vault or something. Wouldn't that be great?
So there already is. There's one Vevolution. I don't know if you've come across Damien and Julie. Okay. So they've run Plant and Pitch for the last 2 or 3 years in London, but it's not sort of TV show like Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. It's done as part of the boot camp, but obviously with COVID-19, I think, and events are unable to happen at the moment, then I think they're looking at a new strategy for. It's called Plant and Pitch, so very similar sort of idea. But I think there's a lot of people would be interested in seeing that as an online TV show, because it's fascinating, isn't it? Seeing these pictures and the dragons asking these awkward questions. I don't watch TV, but it's these days. But it's been like 10 years since I've watched TV properly. But I do miss Dragon's Den, I must admit.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, it's great, all the thinking outside the square, and there's obviously so much going on from what you say, which is really exciting. So hopefully everybody needs to, even the ones that you can't invest in right now, gets to just keep hold of that passion and get to where they want to be. So talking of Vevolution, it's funny, Gareth and I, we went out for lunch yesterday and after listening to you doing a talk for Vevolution, we were going between different outlets. Where we were, there was no 100% vegan, eateries. But the whole time we were like, which one would Matthew support? Because in the talk that we heard you give for Vevolution, you stress the importance of backing vegan products and voting with our wallets for a better world. And for many of us, we feel conflicted where major corporations put out vegan products or, non-vegan eateries have vegan options, but, there's still a lot that we don't like about it. So can you explain for our viewers why it is also still important that we do back these vegan options?
Yeah, so the talk that I gave, the headline was something like why KFC, McDonald's and Unilever are not the enemy. And I was really apprehensive giving that talk to a whole room full, 200 vegan activist types. In fact, I had my running shoes on just in case I needed to sort of dash out of the room really quickly at the end. But it went down very well. So basically, my view is it's nuanced because, I understand that a lot of activists don't like a lot of how capitalism, functions right now, and I totally get that. And clearly, McDonald's and KFC are involved in, horrendous animal exploitation. So, but I think that the bigger picture is that, unfortunately, the plant-based movement is such so small. I mean, it's such a small fraction of the overall world economy. I shared various different facts, but just looking, for example, at vegan restaurants as one example. So I think we worked it out that the number of vegan restaurants in the world are something like 0.001% of all restaurants. So even if the number of vegan restaurants over the next 10 years increased by tenfold, which a lot of people would see that as a real positive move, 10 times more vegan restaurants than there were 10 years ago, we'd still be at 0.001% or whatever it is, 0.2%, in 10 years' time. So all I was proposing is that, wouldn't it be a lot better if the 99.9% of normal restaurants, let's call them, are increasing the number of vegan options? So, and to do that, they need to be able to see that there's a demand for it, which means that vegans, vegetarians, flexitarians need to support that. And then those companies then can see that there is a demand, and they can start doing, and then capitalism becomes better. We're showing that there's a demand, and then they then start making better choices and start providing more plant-based options. So that's the gist of it. I just, and at the end of the day, I mean, I go to vegan restaurants. I support vegan brands myself. We're investing in them right now. But I think my big issue was the criticism that you get from some vegan activists of people that do support these companies by, and being critical of them. And I think, by all means, if you don't want to support McDonald's or KFC, totally get that. But just don't criticize others that are doing it, because it's not necessarily so black and white. That's my perspective on things.
Oh, that's wonderful. We've had a previous talker, Meredith Marine, and she did Vegan Aruba. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but basically turned the island of Aruba vegan by getting these options in so many of the restaurants out there. And basically, anywhere you go on the island, you can eat. And it was...
it's all down to encouragement, wasn't it? It was going into these places saying, what can I eat? You're not providing enough. I'll eat here if you provide what I need. And I know heaps of people that will do the same. And she's got 40 restaurants now in the island of Aruba offering vegan options, whereas before there were none, so there's nothing bad in there, it's all positive.
So
there's some great people doing similar sort of work. Just one other example that I gave in the talk was looking at a big organization like Danone, who are a big conglomerate, mostly dairy-based products, and they acquired a plant-based milk company, White Wave, in about 3 or 4 years ago. Huge amount of money, and they got brands like Alpro in UK and Europe, and Silk in the United States. And and then if you look at their trading updates over the last couple of years, you'll see them talking about that their dairy side of their business is flatlining or even in retreat, but their plant-based products are growing, or even sometimes double-digit, growth on their plant-based lines. So my view was that, looking at it, imagine if I was a director in the boardroom of Danone, and you've got two sides to your business, one which is dairy, exploiting animals, and one which is plant-based and vegan. And, one's going like this and one's going like this. What are you going to do when it comes to investing in the future? You're going to invest more of your time, money, and resources on the plant-based side of things. and you're going to put less into the dairy side of it. And I've seen people saying, well, I'm not willing to spend money with on Alpro because the money's going to go to exploitation of animals through the dairy aspect. But I look at it and think, well, actually, another way to look at it is this is a dairy company that's actually now investing in plant-based. So there's something good has come out of the bad. I know it's looking at it from a simple perspective, but it sort of works for me. I just think we need to infiltrate these businesses. We need to infiltrate the existing infrastructure as much as possible, so that we can change from within. Because if we remain as outsiders, it's a lot more difficult to affect change. But when you're on the inside, you've got a lot more chance to shift the needle in the right direction much faster.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was one part I really enjoyed during that previous talk, and we'll have to get and link it in with the show so people can watch that full talk, because it's really fascinating to see your point of view on it, and it really helped us sort of open my eyes on how I'm voting with my wallet. But so we've talked already a little bit about sort of the investment side of it, and currently at the time of researching this, you were investing in about 8 different game-changing sort of companies with Veg Capital. Some things look absolutely brilliant on paper, but they don't always have the legs. Is there anything that you do to sort of help you decide which projects you want to back?
Yeah. So we're interested in a few niches within a niche, really. So obviously the vegan plant-based scene is a niche at the moment, and we're particularly interested in meat alternatives, alternative proteins, dairy alternatives, egg replacements. We're also interested in cultured cell-based agriculture. Those are our 2 primary areas. We have already invested in other areas, but going forward, we want to invest more in those type of companies. There's a chap called Chris Kerr at New Crop Capital who talks about share of stomach. So it's investing in products where people eat the most of. So chicken, fish. People are eating a lot of that, dairy products. They have a high share of the stomach. So that's the way we're thinking. So, for example, we're less interested in investing in vegan products that are already, their competition is vegan products anyway, because we're not affecting change as fast then. So, for example, I don't know, a fruit and nut snack bar, which, is vegan. That's great. But the competition is probably already mostly vegan anyway, and when people are eating that, it's not a direct replacement for something that is heavy in terms of animal products. So that's the sort of core area that we're looking for. And then in terms of sort of criteria that we're looking for, we have a pitch guidance page on our website and there's sort of 10 key areas that we're looking for in terms of the proposals that come our way. So, I can't remember all 10 of them, but it's things like, what's the problem? Is this a genuine problem that you're solving? Is the solution a realistic solution for the problem? What is your team like? What's your marketing plan like? What's the traction to date? So we're really looking for companies that have potentially already got a minimum viable product, and they can show some sales traction, and that gives us sort of a comfort that this is a company that we'd like to support, and we think there's a real chance that they're going to be successful. And then obviously you get into the nitty-gritty of valuations and all of that awkward stuff. Well, I'm finding it awkward at the minute, but so I mean, if you could put that in the link to, if anybody is interested, we would certainly prefer everybody before contacting us to read through the pitch guidance, So they've got a better idea of what we're looking for. It's also great advice for them, not just with us, but if they're looking for investment from anywhere, just to get an idea of what investors really are looking for and what is likely to be a successful business going forward.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a good idea. We'll definitely provide that link. I'm sure there must be a lot of people that are, at home that have got a really good, brilliant food business or an idea, or, either they've got one themselves or they know somebody who has, and, where do we go from here? So, yeah, we'll definitely do that. Thank you. It really struck a chord with us at the Veg Fest, another one of the brilliant talks that you gave, when you said we are helping the animals who aren't in need yet, as in the ones who are still alive, which is, so true. And when we donate to an animal sanctuary or a charity, it makes us feel really great. But at the same time, we often balk at some of the prices of the plant-based products. So should we perhaps be viewing this differently, and recognizing that by paying a little more for the plant-based innovations, we are also still helping the animals by changing that demand?
Yeah, so I see it quite a lot on social media where there's complaints about the prices of vegan products, and having seen what's the other side of things, the businesses themselves and their cost to manufacture and the supply chain costs involved, and also realizing that all of these companies are actually at this point in time pre-profit. They're not making profits anyway. They're scaling their businesses up and such like. I think we should just be a little bit more supportive and understanding that it's going to take time for these companies to reach scale and economies of scale to be able to compete on a like-for-like basis with the animal-based products. So, personally, I'm comfortable knowing that that companies are potentially making profits out of my purchases. Then if you look at it from a retailer perspective, if supermarkets are actually finding that they're making more money out of the plant-based products than they are out of the animal-based products, because there is a higher gross margin on those products, then they're going to start providing more shelf space. They're going to start promoting those products a lot more because it's in their interest to do so. So, yeah, I'm easygoing on it. I know I'm in a slightly privileged position that I can afford to as well. So I do sympathise, and try not to be judgmental. But I just think if people can afford it to pay a little bit extra for the vegan products, then that's really helping the movement grow and helping to facilitate the growth of the sector, really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's about voting with your wallet, isn't it? And that vote helps the animals in the long run. So,
yeah. But we do need to, as with a lot of these products, we need to get much closer to price parity, because I've often used the analogy of to make the decision to go vegan. It's a bit like if you use the high jump analogy, like if you're in the 70s or 80s, to go vegan, it was like the bar was really high. You had to do one of those, what do you call them, Finsbury flops or whatever to get over there. So you had to be highly committed to want to be vegan because, there was no products. You just had to eat fruit and vegetables, and a lot of vegans that I know in the UK talk about that sauce mix, is it? You had to make your own sausage mix.
Remember that when I went vegetarian, I grew up in the UK, and that was one of the first things I got was a sauce mix. It wasn't that great. It was all right.
No, this is it. And the soya milk and stuff wasn't so great 20 years ago. So the bar was really high, and I think what's been happening over the years is the bar is getting lower and lower. So when I went vegan 8 years ago, I still had to do a bit of a backflip to get over there, but it was doable. I didn't need to train for 2 months to be able to do that. I think with Veganuary and a lot of the organisations in the UK, speaking from a UK perspective, the number of options that are coming to market, it's a bit lower than it was 8 years ago when I did it, so maybe people can almost step over it now. So to get it to a point where it's literally, people can just literally skip over this bar, then we need to get the price of vegan products comparable or even lower. We can get meat alternatives tasting as good as meat or better and for less money, then we're not going to have people arguing about it anymore. It's just going to be natural. It's just going to be obvious. And, we're not quite there yet, but there's promising signs. And in 10, 20 years, then hopefully it'll just be, the bar will be so low that people will just be walking straight over it. I
really look forward to that day. And I think it's one of the times when dropping the bar is a positive thing, and I really look forward to that. But a massive 99% of the animals on this planet are farm animals, compared to the 1% in laboratories, shelters, and other situations. Yet when it comes to charitable giving, to help animal causes, 60% of that goes to shelters. This is something that Veg Capital is also helping to change with the profits you make as a company. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a disproportionate amount of charitable giving. Well, firstly, most charitable giving goes to human causes, but in terms of the money that goes to animals, it goes to to the 1% rather than the 99%. And then even when you look at the 99, the money that's going to vegan causes, there's a higher proportion of that that's going to sanctuaries than is going to campaigns that are campaigning to sort of solve the problem in the first place, if you like, and actually trying to get people to stop eating animal products. So I believe it's one of the, if not the biggest challenge that our movement has got, certainly from a campaigning perspective, is that there just isn't enough funding, there isn't enough money, so that the organisations are all bootstrapped, really. I mean, Veganuary is an example. We've been going for 6 or 7 years now. We're a UK registered charity. We've had quite good brand awareness and a level of success in the UK, but our turnover is still about 1.2 million, which is minute compared to a lot of bigger charities. And it's not just us. There's so many other great campaigning groups out there that are also similarly struggling to raise the funds. So things are changing a little bit. There's the whole effective altruism movement, which is sort of identified this to some extent, and they're sort of focusing on trying to encourage more money to go to these campaign groups like Veganuary, like Pro-Veg, and that are working on the diet change aspect. And in terms of Veg Capital, so I, to be honest, I forgot to mention this when we were talking earlier, but yeah, all of our profits go to charity. We haven't made any profits yet. It's going to be, and the profits that we make will happen when companies that we invest in exit at some point. So you're looking at probably a 3 to 5 year minimum timescale for that to happen. So, when a company that we've invested in is bought out by a bigger player, or they do an IPO or private equity investment or whatever. But at that point in time, if we've invested £250,000 in a startup and we get 10 times revenue on that, which is what we're aiming for with all of our investments. So we've got 2.5 million. We will be investing all of that money into effective animal diet change charities in the UK and Europe. So, we're still a few years away from that, but we'll be keen to try and work out which at that point in time is doing the greatest good for animals and working on that 99% sort of problem that you've mentioned.
That's awesome. Warms my heart just thinking about that with the future, and it must be such an exciting time and such an awesome thing to be part of. I mean, according to the statistics that we've seen, which is probably, I don't know, could be a few years old for all we know now, but Veganuary has resulted in at least 20 million animals' lives being spared, which is phenomenal. How does that make you feel, instigating something like that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's difficult really to calculate these things. So it's a bit of a well, let's put an estimate to it. But listen, me and Jane feel like it's the best idea we've ever had was Veganuary, and we know we've seen so much anecdotal evidence of how we've changed people's lives, forever for the better. We've seen the impact that we've had on some of the corporate world. So, we're very pleased and proud of what we've achieved, but we can't rest on our laurels neither. There's so much more to do. And, when I went vegan and 7, 8, 9 years ago, I lose track. We were like 0.25% of the population at that point in time. I mean, when I went vegan, I'd never met another vegan before. I just decided to do it with absolutely no support from anybody. Now it's maybe 1 to 2% in the UK, and I think there's been progress around the world, but it's still way too slow for the animals. So we've all got to just keep doing our best, trying to do it as effectively as we can, and we'll get there in the end. I'm sure we will.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. To support our speaker, follow the links provided in the description. You can keep up to date with the series by subscribing to our YouTube channel at VeganFTA, and also following our Facebook page, Instagram or Pinterest. If you've enjoyed this series and you want to support it, you can also consider joining our Patreon. Every little helps, and your love and support goes a long way. Thanks for watching.